Next, we will move our focus to the global stage and the unique experiences of educators working across borders. How does teaching in different cultures expand perspectives, inspire creativity, and transform lives? Our upcoming think tank session, Crossing Cultures, Changing Lives, the International Educator's Journey, will dive into these questions and more, highlighting the impact of global exposures on both teachers and learners. Let's give them a warm welcome to our experts. We have Jennifer Tibayan, a teacher and junior leader at Tucson International Academy. Rosanna Permijo, for junior leader of high school English language arts and social studies teacher at Tucson International Academy. Alexander Salde, for middle school teacher at Tucson International Academy. And Lidalyn Salde, the teacher at Tucson International Academy. Sheena Solar, the MS Math and Sci teacher at Tucson International Academy. Mark Narreto, the high school teacher at Tucson International Academy, Midvale. And Jeannette Cañez, programs coordinator at Tucson International Academy. And Arlene Cañez, the principal at Tucson International Academy. Welcome them to the stage.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am Miss Valerie Trudeau. I'm the Assistant Superintendent at Tucson International Academy. We consist of 4 schools that serve students in grades kindergarten through 12th grade. And our mission is we make college come true. We have 100% of our students accepted to college every single year, and we help them through this entire process. Yes, thank you. And we help them through this entire process. But we don't only just focus on academics. We also know the power and the value of cultural awareness. And we do this through different ways. We allow our students to travel internationally, giving them the experience of walking on cobblestone streets, eating foods that they would never eat before, and honestly having these life-changing experiences, coming back different people and seeing life differently. We also bring the world to them through educators and administrators. This afternoon, we have a diverse group of panelists for you, and they're here to discuss their insights and their global perspectives and their journey as to what brought them to where they're at today. They recently collaborated on a book, Crossing Cultures, Changing Lives. We put copies out there on your table. It is a #1 bestseller on Amazon. And in the book, they share their journey as educational teachers, international educational teachers. So starting off this afternoon, I have for you our first panelist, Mr. Alexander Salde.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Alexander Salde. I am a cultural exchange teacher from the Philippines. I've spent approximately 10 years teaching in Thailand, and now I am proud to be part of the team at Tucson International Academy in Arizona. I believe that as an cultural exchange educator, we can make a much deeper impact on the lives of our students if we infuse cultural diversity in our classrooms. So today we are excited to share our stories and the challenges that we experienced, as well as how are we making an impact on the lives of our students. Thank you. And next here we have Ms. Lidalyn Salde.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lidalyn Salde, a remote learning instructor and cultural exchange educator at Tucson International Academy, where I support online learners and students with special needs. I've been in education for 18 years, wherein I spent 16 years in Thailand as a teacher and administrator. With this experience, it taught me flexibility, empathy, and the importance of cross-cultural connections. Today, I'm happy to share my journey as an international educator and how it shapes the way I create inclusive and meaningful learning experiences for my students. Thank you. I have here Ms. Jennifer Tibayan.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. Fellow educators and innovators, my name is Jen Tibayan. I'm a cultural exchange teacher from the Philippines, and currently I'm teaching middle school at Tucson International Academy. So in our classroom, we really build a community where students grow inspired as global citizens and student leaders. Therefore, we work hard for high performance, but most importantly, we practice this Filipino value that I introduced to them. We call it the utang na loob. It's a deep sense of gratitude that truly inspires our students to care for the success of their future, but most importantly, to start caring for the people around them. And I'm just so excited to share that with you this afternoon. Here with me, Ms. Ross Permijo.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jen Tibayan. Hi, everyone. I am Ms. Rosanna Permijo, an international educator and a proud cultural ambassador from the Philippines. So for nearly 10 years, I dedicated my journey, serving in the education. And I spent over 6 years back in the Philippines teaching in a faith-based school. Now, I'm in my 4th year teaching ELA and Social Studies at Tucson International Academy Broadway campus. And I also mentor the statewide Junior Achievement Program and also mentor the Student Council of our campus. And this afternoon, I am truly excited and privileged to share with you what led me beyond national border and why I do believe that in education, learning should inspire, leadership should empower, and the future should transpire. Thank you, and now we have Ms. Sheena Soler.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Maayong adlaw kaninyong tanan. Good day, everyone. I am Sheena Soler. I'm a Filipino educator with 15 years of teaching experience in both the Philippines and here in the United States. I began my teaching career as a high school chemistry teacher, and now I teach middle school math and science at Tucson International Academy. So today, I will be sharing my 3 key practices that guide my teaching and shape the learning experience in my classroom. So first, I make learning effective by designing engaging and student-centered lessons such as project-based learning. And then second, I establish clear routines and consistent expectations to create a more structured and more focused learning environment. And third, most importantly, I embrace cura personalis, which means caring for the whole child by supporting my students, not just their academic growth, but also their social and emotional well-being. So as an educator, I firmly believe that meaningful learning happens when students feel engaged and supported. So I'm truly honored to be here, and I look forward to meeting all of you and learning from our shared experiences. Thank you, and daghang salamat. Mr. Mark?
Thank you, Ms. Sheena. Madayaw fellow educators, I am Mark Narreto, a cultural exchange teacher from the Philippines and now teaching English language arts and social studies for high schoolers at Tucson International Academy. So my years of experience as a news anchor in my home country have strengthened my professional experience as an educator. The transformative power of journalism has taught my students how to think critically and look at the world in different perspectives. Journalism has trained them to question information, verify sources, and identify bias rather than just accepting the information at face value. And also, it makes them become, effective storytellers by writing clearly, become purposive in their writing, and conveying their stories compellingly. Today, I'm very happy to share my instructional strategies that are anchored on inquiry, storytelling, and analysis. Daghang salamat ug dalaygo ng Diyos. Ms. Jeannette Cannon?
Thank you, Mr. Narreto. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeannette Cannon. I am the programs coordinator at Tucson International Academy. In our book, Crossing Cultures, Changing Lives, my chapter is chapter 6. I grew up in a military family, and I spent many of my early elementary years in Canada. Much of my career has been in very diverse, multicultural, multilingual environments, and those experiences have shaped my passion for languages and cultures and reinforcing my commitment to lifelong learning and serving diverse students. In my role, I work to strengthen our English learner program. I focus on building systems that support students and schools, ensuring we meet compliance requirements. and implementing meaningful, effective programs for our multilingual learners. That makes this work especially meaningful to me by helping students recognize that the value of strengthening their academic English and connecting to where they are now to the opportunities they can achieve in the future. I'd like to introduce Ms. Arlene Cañez.
Thank you, Ms. Cannon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arlene Cañez. I'm principal of Tucson International Academy in Tucson, Arizona. In my daily leadership, my priority is supporting international teachers as they experience cross-cultural teaching in U.S. classrooms. When teachers feel equipped, confident, and supported, their global perspectives benefit every student. There's a quote that has stayed with me. Every child deserves at least one adult that is irrationally crazy about him or her.
It's true.
That belief continues to guide the way I lead and the culture we work to build in our schools. My colleagues and I recently published a collection of our cross-cultural experiences in U.S. classrooms, written from both the perspectives of our international teachers and their Western counterparts. It is a #1 bestseller on Amazon, and there's copies on your tables. Today, we will share key highlights from our chapters that we've written in our book, Crossing Cultures, Changing Lives. Mr. Alex, I have a question for you. So how did your cross-cultural background influence what you do in your classroom?
Thank you, Ms. Cañez. All right, to address the question, I would like to highlight again our book, Crossing Cultures, Changing Lives. So in this book, I have a specific chapter of my own. I wrote about my experiences, my journey, the challenges, the culture shock, all right, and the stark contrast between the U.S. and the Southeast Asian classroom. But to answer Ms. Cañez's question today, I will focus on a specific part of my chapter where I wrote about how I deliberately infuse cultural diversity in my classes. I want to share a collaborative project between my 5th graders and the students of the same age or grade level from the Philippines. The project began with a very simple task. As part of our narrative writing essay lesson, students from both classes wrote to each other letters. So we wrote about our typical day at school. So a very simple task. So we scanned these handwritten letters and just use a teacher-to-teacher email to just send them, exchange these letters. Surprisingly, the students from the Philippines sent us photos as well of their daily lives on top of those letters. So when my students or my class started reading these letters, they were at first very excited. The classroom was buzzing with excitement. But later on, the room went quietly. They started reading about kids their age, like needs to wake up 5:30 a.m. in the morning so that they can do chores or help on the farm before they even start their school day. They are reading about kids that needs to like walk a few miles to school. So some of my students are very curious about this, like, oh, Mr. Alex, they just walk to school? Do they have cars? Don't they have like school buses? So, and then we look at the photos. That is where reality hit them. So my students saw photos of kids their age sitting inside a non-air-conditioned classrooms, kids sharing worn-out books, and kids crowding a small wooden desk. So for my students in Arizona that are used to being driven to school by their parents or riding school buses to school or staying in air-conditioned classrooms and with high-speed internet, this is shocking. For them, this is a reality that they never knew existed. Uh, so as a culmination of that project, I asked them to write a reflection letter. So some of my students' observations are very interesting. Some of them realize the opportunities and the resources they are taking for granted, and some of them even have like realized that even though like the students in the Philippines they have less, they look happier. They said it looks like they're having so much fun in school. Um, this activity has sparked deep curiosity among my students, within my students. Now my students, they not only want to learn about the Philippines or other cultures, they want to travel, they want to go there, they want to meet these kids, and they want to be their friends. They even asked me if we could like continue doing the project, exchanging letters beyond our specified time frame. So my message today is this: cultural diversity is not only like a feel-good lesson for all of us. It could also be a tool. I will use a simile. Like it's like a window that we show our students the world, ask them to be more curious and know about other cultures. But at the same time, it is also it's like a mirror um, to help them look within themselves, examine their own lives. Um, so we are teaching by doing this, we are teaching them to be more curious, to be more grateful, and to realize that even though like the differences are very obvious, we are more alike than we realize. I think that is a beautiful thing, and I think that is the kind of learning that really makes a difference in our kids. Thank you.
So, Mr. Alex, I'm so impressed with your classroom projects, but I'm curious, did you collaborate with specific teachers in the Philippines? How did the collaboration go?
Thank you, Mr. Mark. Um, it all started when I contact my network of educator friends back in the Philippines because I was looking for a teacher that has like the same grade level as my students here in the U.S. When I found the teacher, I simply sent a formal email proposal. So maybe we spent a couple of weeks emailing back and forth, talking about the theme and the timeline of the project. But overall, it was a very seamless process. And we were able to start almost immediately. I think for the rest of people or teachers here who want to do the same, um, there are like platforms that help you find teachers like this. Um, for example, there is like pen pal schools or class2class.org where they can help you find teachers to work with from other countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alex.
Mhm. Okay. Next here we have Miss Lynn. Since you have taught in Thailand and now in the US, how do you integrate multiple cultural perspectives into your educational philosophy?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Alex. So my teaching style comes from my own story. So the Filipino heart, which values education heavily, the Thai community spirit, and the American way of giving students voice. I like to think that my classroom is a place where all these three come together. One of my favorite moments was during our cultural day. Tucson International Academy has a tradition. So it is a yearly tradition where both teachers and students share their own unique culture. So during this time, I showed videos of my students from Thailand and the Philippines sharing their daily lives. So it is a recorded video where students showed their school, their daily lives, and of course, they showed a video of their tradition, the dances, the culture, and all and such. So my Tucson students love it, and they laughed, they asked questions, and then they realized that even though these children live far away, They share the same hopes and challenges. That moment showed them something no book could teach. We understand each other better if we really know people from other culture, even through screen. So the Filipino side of me brings the warmth and strong relationship. The Thai side reminds me to build a calm and caring classroom. And the American side encourages me to let students speak up and take part in their own learning. For me, it is about balance, helping students see that every culture has something valuable to offer. Since then, I've seen my students become more curious, they become more open, they ask a lot of questions, they become thoughtful to each other. They've started creating their own cross-cultural projects and thinking more about what it means to be a global citizen and to be a good teammate. For me, it is the best part of teaching, watching them build their own cultural bridges. Thank you.
Miss Lynn, it's really great to see that students are willingly sharing their ideas, their identities, and even their, cultural background in a meaningful way. I would love to hear, and I'm pretty sure some of our colleagues here are excited to know what is the most important or favorite part of the cultural presentation.
Okay. So our cultural presentation, it does not just involve, their culture, the tradition. Students and teachers would prepare food, dishes, simple dishes that's, important or traditional to their culture. So we do the presentation, we present the dishes, and afterwards, the most important part or the most favorite part is when we start sharing and, sampling all the different food. Thank you, Ms. Ross.
Always about food.
Ms. Jen, my question for you is, what strategies did you use to rebuild classroom community for students struggling socially and emotionally?
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. Fellow educators and innovators, the heart of my chapter 10, which you can also find in our book, Crossing Cultures, Changing Lives, would certainly discuss some of these strategies that truly worked for me, especially as a middle school teacher right after the pandemic. So imagine entering a middle school classroom. What will you hear? What will you see? Energy, right? You will hear buzzing, you will hear excitement, they will have so much energy to talk to each other, and there's just a unique type of energy in a middle school classroom. But for context, Ms. Lynn and ladies and gentlemen, when I first entered into my middle school classroom as the world reopened right after the pandemic, the silence was different. It wasn't even a focused silence. It was as if they lost the spark of genuine social connection. And even, why am I coming to school? What is the purpose of education? And I believe that as a teacher, as an educator, I cannot pretend everything was normal. I cannot just open a textbook, then, hey, this is our lesson for the day. No. I had to first address their social emotional need. Therefore, I think one of the best strategies that I believe will still work even up to this generation of, technological advancements and AI would still be storytelling, connecting to the students through real life stories. So I always share this favorite story that I even entitled myself, The Power of a Pencil. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, do you always use a pencil? Or do you find a pencil at the bottom of your backpack? Right? Or what do you do with that 2-inch stub pencil? Isn't it that you will just toss it because you find it useless? Or while listening to trainings like this, or even if you're a student inside the classroom, if you're bored, what do you think students will do to a pencil? Toss it. Even break it. But what I introduced to my student is the reality that from the mountain schools in the Philippines, I've met a lot of students who trek miles or hike miles, cross rivers, and give so much value to this 2-inch pencil because they find so much opportunity in that pencil. They value it as a treasure. And I know our students here in America were really struggling right after the pandemic, but I told them that you are not alone. These students, as what Mr. Alex just mentioned in his story a while ago, is the same experience that the students from the Philippines also had right after the pandemic. But they still put so much value in that privilege of education that was given to them. And from these types of stories I tell my students and the values of also introducing what we call in the Philippines, utang na loob. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 3 p.m. Can you repeat after me? Utang na loob.
Utang na loob.
It's a deep sense of gratitude. But it talks about how other people, your parents, your teachers, tias, tios, work so hard just for you to enjoy this privilege that you have right now to have education because they want you to become successful. And that utang na loob is some sort of a value that I believe the students will eventually be so inspired to realize that, hey, I'm here in school because my parents work so hard because they want me to be successful. There's going to be a spark of motivation that I'm also going to do my best and be motivated because someone cares for me so much. And I believe it has been a topic all throughout this discussion. True connection, the care. And that's what our students really need, right? So after addressing this social-emotional health, now I moved on to academic expectations, high performance. But still, I am not the master inside the classroom. To build that type of community where students collaborate more, I gave the power to the students. I stepped down as a lecturer and made sure my students became owners of their own learning opportunity. So we implement student-led learning systems in TIA, and also I introduce flipped learning systems. I believe you have heard of that system and model. And in here, imagine this type of scenario. In group settings, students have the specific rubrics, instructions, materials that they have to have as a group to accomplish a certain project. Before, without these strong expectations of collaboration inside the classroom, if they don't know what to do, who will they turn to? The teacher.
Sure.
Miss, I don't know what to do. Miss, I lost my pencil. Miss, I lost the instructions. But now, because of this collaborative student leadership that we're trying to build inside the classroom, the students now start helping each other. Specific question before I end my sharing and as we proceed. The specific scenario, there's this one event where the member of the group lost his material. So I told them, I gave everything, instructions, roles. The moment that we start, you have to be ready. Instead of coming to me, another student stepped in. Don't worry, we're gonna make it work. And the effect was immediate. The student who lost his material did not feel left behind. He felt supported, not judged. And the student who stepped in to help felt a sense of leadership. Dear educators, it's not uncommon that it's happening, right? But one thing's for sure, if our students understand the power of that 2-inch tub of pencil, the power of realizing the privilege that they have in the education in the classrooms, and the power of the importance of their classmates, of the people around them, they will not just write, they will thrive and they will start to lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jen. That story is really powerful. It's so nice to hear that you were able to build, strong relationship in your classroom. And it's not just teacher and student, it's, student and student relationship. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. Now I have a question for Ms. Ross. Ms. Ross, I'm just really wondering, how do you integrate empathy and service into your classroom instruction, especially in an American setup?
Thank you so much, Miss Jen, for that beautiful question. Before I answer that, Miss Jen, I would like to greet our global educators and also our dearest guests. Good afternoon, everyone, and mabuhay in the Philippines. You know, our terminology ways it welcome. So before I answer that, Miss Jen, I would like to share this perspective of mine. I see every classroom as a microcosm of society, a living world where diverse voices connect and stories are honored, and at the same time, students learn not just facts, but how empathy, respect, and service lay the foundation of the community they will one day lead. So, by the way, just to promote again, our book is available on Amazon. And my story, my chapter in the story is featured at chapter 16, where I actually illustrate how I brought these Filipino values in the American classroom setting. Now, you know, Miss Jen, this perspective is kind of personal to me because service and empathy is the first values I learned at home. And when I began teaching in the United States, I made a conscious decision to brought these values into my American classroom. I started creating opportunities for my students. They are sharing their stories, their culture, and at the same time, the experiences through storytelling. We also have cultural presentation in our campus because we are in a district. So one presentation is for everybody. And at the same time, they also learn how to work collaboratively and to have a meaningful discussion to one another. So my students not only learn those, but they also develop this what we call leadership skills. By the way, I also assist the student council in the Tucson International Academy, where they actually mentor, okay, their younger generation, the little kids, not little kids, but middle school and lower elementary. And at the same time, we have this what we call statewide junior achievement program, wherein for a day, they will be the one teaching inside the classroom, and we want them to feel how to be a teacher for a day. And that junior achievement program actually brought the inner leadership in them, wherein they discuss the lesson given to them, they experience how to manage the classroom, and at the same time, how to stand in front of the kids, and they also experience what we experienced for the whole 10 months. Isn't it crazy? Like, we let them
For a
feel
day.
like how to be a teacher. And after that, I also asked them, how would you feel? Are you willing to be a teacher? Some of them, like, yes, miss, we want to be a teacher in the future. And some of them, like, miss, no, it's so
No.
difficult to be a teacher. I don't even know how to stop the kids talking. I don't even know how to manage. I don't even know how to deliver my lesson. And that is actually important. They learn the value of educator inside the classroom because for a day they experience it. They experience it. And also, we have a student council. We partner with different communities and organizations in Tucson, Arizona, wherein our student council led that community service, the volunteer works. We are training them to be like that. So for that, Miss Jen, and ladies and gentlemen, these experiences foster empathy, constructive feedback, collaboration in this what we call shared responsibility to support one another. So this approach matters to me because students face challenges, okay? I observed earlier in the different session, some of you guys talk about challenges inside the classroom, and that is real. That is evident. But most of the time, those struggles are not immediately visible. Students are actually facing in their day-to-day basis like family struggles, financial difficulties, emotional stress, academic pressure, mental health concern, language barriers, and also the weight of expectation at home. So I firmly believe that as an educator, when the classroom prioritizes this what we call empathy and service, students feel confident, capable, and empowered to make a difference. From this, we develop this what we call strong sense of belongingness, where their voices matter, and at the same time, their experiences are acknowledged. And these students begin to understand that learning is not just about grades. We are used to, like, enforcing or telling the kids, like, your grades are important. Yes, it is. It is really important because that will be your stepping stone to move up. But what we sometimes forgot to teach our kids is that it's about becoming an individual who can positively impact the world around them. It is not just about grades. And one thing is that I am I am proud that in my classroom right now, it's not just a classroom wherein instruction is given. For my students, because I've been with them for 4 years already, it becomes a space of healing, growth, and at the same time belonging. So I think one thing that I learned from this journey as an international educator, I blend the Filipino values with American practices, and I have seen students grow not just academically, but over time, these practices transform into a true community. Our classroom now is a community of a peace builder, a community of one another who actually care for each one of them. And at the same time, they engage with culture beyond their own. Just like what Mr. Alex mentioned earlier, they became like interested. Miss, what food do you recommend when we eat Filipino dishes? Miss, what beautiful spot you recommend when we visit Philippines? So they became open to different or diverse culture as well.
Yes.
So at its core, I do believe educators that teaching is more than a content. It is about shaping individuals who step into the world where courage, compassion, and a deep sense of responsibility for others is evident. And I do believe that if I have done my job well as an educator, my student will not leave my classroom with knowledge alone. They will be leaving the door with the conviction that empathy is not optional and service is not occasional. Because long after lesson, I do believe they will forget everything, all that. Their grades, like, when they reach 20, like, oh, I passed 75. Like, I passed C, something like that. But what remains in them is the what we call character. And that character is that how they treat other people, how they respond to the differences, and at the same time, how they choose to stand up when it's difficult.
Yeah.
So before I end my talk is that if there's one thing I always hope my students to learn and carry with them when they get out of my classroom, it is this. In a world that often moves fast and forget to care, I want them to choose to slow down, to listen, to support one another, and to lead with heart. And if they do that, my purpose as an educator in the classroom does not end, in that little classroom, because I will see it in my student who will actually has that character. Okay, they will touch the lives of other people, and at the same time, they will be serving the community one day. And I heard one of the panelists earlier. Our students are actually the future of our, society. They will be the future builder. Doctors, engineers, teachers, and other professions as well. We are building them. But we are not just building them, we are shaping them. So I do believe that as an educator, we should be proud of our work because we are shaping lives. And that lives is the one who will be building the community. Thank you.
Miss Ross, you mentioned, bringing your values into the classroom, and I know some specific very favorite things that I've seen in your class that have changed with your student. Is there anything that just stands out, one instance maybe that just stands out for you, the changes that you've seen in your students?
Thank you so much, Ms. Cañez. That is actually an important question, but I would like to answer that in a simple way. For over 4 years of teaching as an international teacher, one thing that stood out the most for me is that relationship matters more than anything else. Not just program alone, not materials or not even strategies, on their own. Because what we are building inside the classroom is not just content. I heard, other panelists as well mention that about content for high school teachers. Just for reference, I am a high school teacher and I am actually teaching young adults. Imagine they were taller than me, 6'3", 6 flat. They are varsity players. And my thing is that I built this relationship with them every day. The moment they actually came in for our morning assembly, I'm asking them, hey, how are you doing? How was your week? Did you eat breakfast? What did you do over the weekend? Because for me, trust built between teacher and students is important. Because at the end of the day, I learned that this need is universal. No matter where the students come from, and even us as a human being, we have these three important questions. Quiet question, actually. Do I matter here? Do I belong here? Or am I capable of making a difference? Because after all, the students will forget all the lessons, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So I think that's the most important for me. Thank you.
Well, Ms. Ross, I truly admire how you emphasize empathy in the classroom. So as an educator, I've been teaching for 15 years. I believe it's very essential because it allows us to connect with our students and it helps us to build a strong relationship with them.
Thank you, Ms. Sheena. Since you actually piggyback on that, I have a question for you. The question is, building on this empathy inside the classroom, Ms. Sheena, what were the most challenging aspect of transitioning, from being a teacher in the Philippines to middle schools in an American classroom?
Well, thank you, Ms. Ross. In the book, Cruising Cultures, Changing Lives, I am featured in chapter 19, where I share my journey as an educator across different countries, classroom, and culture. So I transitioned from being a high school chemistry teacher in the Philippines, and now I teach middle school math and science here in the United States. So for me, it is a shift that challenged me both professionally and personally, and ultimately shaped me who I am as an educator today. So to answer your question, Ms. Ross, one of the most challenging part of my transition here in the U.S. middle school classroom was learning how to meet the needs of the younger learners. So I was used to teaching high school where students are more independent. So stepping into a middle school classroom meant I had to rethink everything. I had to rethink my pacing, my instruction, and even my expectations. So I quickly realized that middle schoolers, they need more structure, clearer directions, and consistent engagement to stay focused. So this pushed me to be more intentional and definitely more creative in how I delivered my lessons. And beyond these immediate challenges, I also had to navigate cultural differences, new educational system. And just like any of us, I also had to deal with language barrier. I learned new standards. I learned teaching approaches and practices while adjusting to different classroom routines and communication styles. So this experience, it taught me how to slow down, to listen more, and definitely finding creative ways on how to ensure every student in my classroom and every family feels included and understood. And to be honest, Ms. Ross, classroom management was another area of growth for me. And this is one of my biggest initial challenges. I learned how to establish clear routines, set expectations, and follow through daily. So over time, I realized it's not about discipline, but it's about building relationship and creating a space where every student feels safe, respected, and valued. And through time, as I gained my confidence in teaching, I started exploring more student-centered strategies, such as project-based learning. So I've done similar projects back in the Philippines, and I found it very effective to my high school students where they're more independent and they can handle less guided activities. So I tried doing it to my younger students, to my middle schoolers, and to my surprise, it worked even better. So one of the projects that really stand out for me is the very well-known project-based learning, which is the Geometricity, a city made of math. So the students, they accepted the role of city engineers, and the goal was to design and build their own cities. They had to turn abstract concepts in math into, just like, for example, lines, angles, and shapes, into something more creative and meaningful. So for the first time, it was incredible to see my students fully engage and take ownership of their learning. So until now, I can still remember my classroom. That time, it felt so different. It was way more louder. It was more active and full of energy in the best way. So my students, they started to collaborate. They even started to ask questions and supported each other. So I was so amazed how they turn abstract concept into something tangible and exciting. So seeing them taking pride of their learning, this remind me why I become a teacher in the first place. So looking back to all of these challenges, this helped me grow in ways I never expected. So this pushed me to become more adaptable, more culturally responsive, and more reflective in my own practice. And most importantly, they help me become more intentional in creating a classroom that is truly student-centered, where every learner feels seen and empowered to succeed. Thank you.
Ms. Sheena, really quick, that was a very interesting project concept you mentioned. But you mentioned that you did this same project back in the Philippines and now here in the USA. Can you I'm just curious, in what ways it reveals like the contrast between these two classrooms? Like,
Well, thank you, Miss Alex. So in the Philippines, I used to teach in a very large private school. So it's a Catholic school. And teachers, we regularly collaborate with each other, and our students were accustomed to work in groups. So here in the US, however, I noticed that the students, they're more used to working independently. So every time I try to pair or group them for a collaborative project, so I noticed that they prefer to work alone. Like Miss Sheena, can I just work alone? Or Miss Sheena, I don't want to work with with my classmates. But despite of this, I continue to advocate for collaborative learning in my classroom because I strongly believe that the ability to collaborate effectively, regardless of our personal preferences, is a very essential life skill. Yes. So I would always remind them that learning to work with others prepares them for future academic and professional environments. Yes.
it's very interesting observation. Thank you, Ms. Sheena.
And Mr. Mark, before you became an educator, you were once a local news anchor in the Philippines. So how did your journalism background help students engage across culture?
Thank you, Ms. Sheena, for that question. Once again, fellow educators and change makers, good afternoon. So yeah, you were right, Ms. Sheena. Back in the Philippines, I was a news anchor. That is why in chapter 14 of our book, Crossing Cultures and Changing Lives, I shared my journey, how education and media, or being a journalist, become a perfect blend in terms of pursuing the truth, looking at the world in different perspectives, and establishing meaningful connections in my classroom. So, like I said earlier, I was a journalist back in the Philippines for so many years, and transitioning from that career to education made my journey truly enriching and transformative. So, my experiences as a media man helped me connect with my students with different cultural backgrounds by listening to them actively, asking meaningful questions, and respecting diverse perspectives in terms of social issues and concerns, since I'm teaching social studies and ELA for high schoolers. So in my classroom, I use these skills by encouraging my students to share their own stories, their personal experiences without judgment and prejudice. In my instruction, I infuse Filipino core values such as being makatao. This is upholding human rights and self-worth. Makadiyos, a deep sense of spiritual connection. Makakalikasan, an environmental stewardship. And makabansa, a love for the country and fellow men. As a result, Ms. Sheena, students learned how to do the art of storytelling that has depth, relevance, and engagement. And also, journalistic principles have made my students skeptical with information, especially in this time and age. I don't know if you guys agree, we call it a post-truth era where every single of us has own version of truth. And where misinformation and like fake news spreads faster than the truth. So in my ELA and social studies classes, I encourage my students to challenge assumptions all the time and to look beyond the surface, not just to receive, and accept the information that they read, they hear, they see in every like media channel, but instead to question more, analyze, and seek the truth behind this information. Just as how journalists, that we are trained to do that, like how to be critical and accurate at all times in the field. So now I inspired my students on how to question claims, evaluate sources of information at all times, and to separate facts from opinions, and to, stand independently and think independently. And I think that experience infused in my intercultural journey here in the United States, I am very grateful because I was able to establish journalism and education as a perfect blend, to create a classroom wherein every voice, like every student voice is heard and every experience is truly valued. So I think that's it, Mission. Thank you very much.
Mr. Narreto, what are some effective questioning strategies that you've used with your students?
Thank you for that insightful question, Ms. Cannon. So in my class, I usually tell my students to ask open-ended questions at all times. So open-ended questions begin with the whys and the hows. And it's so superior because there's a psychology behind it. Because when you ask like the how questions, it somehow prompts you to give solution to the problem, to become innovative. You're asking for innovation. Well, the whys explains the purpose, the motivation of the interviewee. So I think this type of questioning, when you are using it in your classroom, it makes your students, it's an invitation for your students to ask more, like tell something more about the topic, like never to be scared about it, something like that.
Yeah.
So I hope that makes sense.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mark. And it's just so great that you incorporate creative and critical thinking into your curriculum, because I think it's not so common that we incorporate out of the box expectations, but still with analytical rigor. So I believe your students really are benefiting from it. So thank you, Mr. Mark.
All right, Ms. Cannon, I have a question for you. So how have your experiences in diverse cultural settings shaped your approach to teaching and leadership?
Thank you, Mr. Narreto, for your question. My experiences, I've been fortunate to have experienced working in very diverse cultural settings, including a Native American reservation and a military school on Guam. And here at Tucson International Academy, we have these experiences have really shaped how I approach both teaching and learning and leadership. I've learned to observe, adapt, and build on understanding where students are coming from. Students, their families, multicultural families, classrooms, and schools all bring their own unique cultures. And learning about that and appreciating those communities and developing those relationships has really broadened my perspectives as a teacher, a leader, and a lifelong learner myself. And in the classroom, that's looked like putting routines in place that respect cultural norms. For example, understanding in some cultures, lack of eye contact is a sign of respect, not disrespect or disengagement. And understanding that understanding that respect for cultural norms, and instruction based on students' interests and involving storytelling is also a meaningful way to connect with students, as you all have mentioned as well. It connects with their culture, their community, and their own experiences. It's a powerful way for building both connection and language skills. And students really do want to hear stories and share their own about themselves, where they come from, and their experiences. You can see them really light up when they do. At our school, many of our students are Hispanic, and many have ties to Mexico. We've also worked with students, siblings from Zimbabwe, Togo, the Philippines, and Saudi Arabia, and Colombia. Experiences like that have really reinforced for me, students don't all communicate or learn in the same way. And a lot of that has shaped by their backgrounds. And because of that, I don't believe a one-size-fits-all approach works. And so I believe investing in time and learning about each student, who they are, where they come from, and what matters to them. That helps build their trust, their self-esteem, creates a space where they feel comfortable being themselves. And when students feel seen and respected, especially our English learners, they're more engaged, more confident, more self-reflective, and more willing to take risks with language, and learning becomes more meaningful. Ms.
You know what, Miss Cannon, before you actually ask question, I really appreciate your point when you said like not all strategies are one size fits all, because it truly shows how responsive and how intentional your program is when it comes to meeting the diverse needs of the English learners. But I am actually curious, how do you ensure that this group of learners truly prepare in their standardized test?
Great question. Thank you for the question, Ms. Ross. Yes, that is a reality we do have to face. So I focus on just developing those communication skills, also teaching them how to take a standardized test as part of it, and just helping them have that confidence and also the mindset and valuing bilingualism. I'd like to ask Ms. Cañez. Ms. Cañez, as an administrator, how do you ensure international teachers succeed despite cultural differences in the American classroom?
Thank you, Ms. Cannon. I really appreciate you asking me that question. When our first international teachers arrived, we did not fully know what the challenges would be. We assumed that strong teaching would transfer across settings. Initially, our approach was responsive. In the early months, we paid close attention to what was happening in the classrooms, in parent communication, and then day-to-day interactions. When teachers struggled, we didn't treat those moments as isolated issues. We used them to build systems. We clarified behavior expectations across the schools so that teachers weren't dealing with moments, isolated moments. They weren't isolated moments. We used, sorry, I got stuck on that. We clarified they weren't managing the situations on their own. Sorry about that. We modeled the communication with parents and families, specifically around tone and clarity. At the same time, we had to adjust as leaders. We became more intentional in how we listened. When a teacher described a situation, we slowed down our response. We asked questions before offering solutions. We worked to understand what the teacher experienced, not just what we observed. That helped us respond in a way that was more supportive and more accurate. Over time, what started as a reactive response became more of a structured system of mentorship, communication, and consistency across the schools. As leaders, we knew the challenges our teachers faced were not about ability. They were about cultural differences. Without recognizing that, it would have been easy to mislabel those struggles. Many of our teachers come from systems where authority is clearly defined and student behavior is more predictable. Facing challenges in U.S. classrooms with U.S. students had different cultural and behavioral dynamics. Without context, that can feel personal and it can affect confidence quickly. As leaders, we had to recognize our role in the process. If we responded too quickly without listening carefully, we risked reinforcing frustration instead of resolving it. Adjusting our communication, being patient, and reflecting on our own responses allowed us to support teachers more effectively. That shift helped us build trust. It also helped teachers feel seen as professionals who were learning a new system, not individuals struggling to fit into a role. We were able to move from reacting to problems to building programs that support teachers more consistently. Teachers became more confident because expectations were clear and support was steady. We saw stronger relationships develop between teachers, students, and families. As communication improved and understanding increased, situations that created tension became opportunities for connection.
Yeah.
From a leadership perspective, we became more aware of how culture shapes every aspect of the school experience. That awareness changed how we led, how we listened, and how we support. Our teachers were able to succeed not because the challenges disappeared, but because we built systems with the understanding needed to navigate them effectively.
Well, everybody, that concludes our presentation. I don't think we have time for any Q&A. Do we? Maybe? No? Okay, we don't have any time for Q&A, but if you do have any questions, feel free to connect with us anytime during the conference. I do want to point out that there are sign-up sheets on your tables. We are offering free online leadership development because I'm pretty sure you would all agree with us that the world needs leaders, but they need leaders that are impactful, and they need leaders that know their why. So we will be hosting a 3-session leadership development that consists of mission statement, mindset, and goal setting. So feel free, if you're ready to take your leadership to the next level or know somebody that's interested in taking their leadership to the next level, please sign up. We just need your name, your email, and your phone number. Thank you so much, Education 2.0, for having us.
Thank you.